12 weeks ago, I set out on a trip with a sole focus, and that's starting a new season of training. A plan, Coach Molly, some training gear, and then just executing on that. I wanted to share that journey with you, but I also wanted to share the program so you could see exactly what I'm doing and follow along if you wanted to as well. All 3 4-week phases were available to download. You can find them in the description. But the question is, was there actually any progress made? Well, we started off with some assessments to see where things are at. Today, I want to compare against, but I also want to share with you the exercises and techniques that I found helped to make that progress. There's going to be a lot of information in this video, so make sure you check the timestamps and all the other information in the link down below. Let's jump into this one and see how the progress has gone. So today is the day, and I'm quite excited because I know that I've improved and I've made progress, but I actually have no idea by how much. We're no longer in sunny Spain. I'm actually in Bristol at the moment, so a full warm-up is in order before we test 4 things today. We've got the chin-up, we've got the L handstand push-up, we've got the dip, and then external rotators at the end. The goal of these tests is really to assess the general strength and work capacity in the basics of bodyweight training as a general prep for a lot of more advanced stuff. Let's start with the chin-ups. In testing, I managed to achieve 14 reps. I should mention that this is full range of motion reps, full lockout at the top and the bottom. Tops off, obviously, for extra strength gains. Let's see how the performance goes. Just sly of the 20 rep mark. I was just too pumped and gassed at that point. It's just a long time under tension. Overall, I'm happy with the improvement. That was a 28% increase over that 12 weeks. Right, let's move on to test number 2, and that is the handstand push-up. The reason for the L position is that it allows us to have a consistent angle and position to test from. Think of it in a similar way to having a set weight. Eventually, the bin proved to be the perfect assistance. In the original test, I managed to achieve 8 reps, and yep, let's see the improvement from the past 12 weeks. L handstand push-ups feeling significantly stronger. I think the thing I noticed most about the assessments at the beginning of this phase was that my pushing strength was lagging much more behind my pulling, and that's probably due to the instability that this labrum tear caused. I'm pretty happy to get 12 reps. 15 would have again been nice, but a 50% improvement, I'm not going to complain. General handstand push-up. About 4 weeks in, I was able to do doubles, and actually last week I managed to get a set of 5, which is kind of my end goal. I said I wanted to get back to being able to do 5 handstand push-ups, 5 shoulder presses. I managed to get that 5, albeit a very sloppy 5. It's definitely moving in the right direction. Right, last compound movement. Let's test some dips. I originally only managed to do 12 reps. Again, pushing strength is lagging. The goal this time, I want to hit 20. And again, we're performing with a full range of motion, full lockout at the top. Shoulder has to go below the elbow to count as a rep. And of course, sticking to a reasonable tempo. Recounting, watching that clip back, it was 16. But I am disappointed. I was definitely hoping to get 20 on that one. 20 for chins and dips was the end goal of this 12 weeks. And either way, a 33% improvement is nothing to be snubbed at. I will definitely be keeping these on the cards as I said, I think there's a lot more to be gained from this movement as a general prep for a lot of more advanced stuff like planche and other things. The final test is external rotators. So we got 5 kilos, which was what we tested the original reps on. As I said, the shoulder feels much better, so I will go more than this, but I'm going to do this as a warm-up. And then we're going to aim for 10% of body weight and see how many reps can be done. 8 reps, I would be very pleased to have. I don't think it's likely on the old injured arm. Now this one is going to be proportional to your strength. So the more handstand push-ups, dips that you can perform, the stronger your external rotators need to be to balance out the muscles on each side of the joint. Very happy to be able to hit 8 reps with that 10% of body weight. I will take that all day. This is probably the biggest win out of all the strength assessments and probably the one that has supported that improvement in the pushing gains. Based on this, I want to give you 3 key takeaways when it comes to strength training. Number 1 is strengthen weak points. This is not just the external rotators. I actually found great value in the power raise as well for strengthening the traps and the scapula. The reason I like this is because it gets hardest when we come across the body when the arms are in the same position as we would in a pressing movement. It's not just these individual areas either. We need to think about it in terms of movements. So for example, there was a lot of work in the bottom portion of the handstand push-up. This is often the weak point for a lot of people. This is trained using extra range of motion or specifically with dead stop handstand push-ups. Next is repeating movements. Performing chin-ups twice a week and then also handstand push-up twice a week in phase 3 was absolutely fundamental to making that good progress. A lot of people are keen to add random variation of exercises when actually you're going to get better progress from just progressively overloading the basics and keeping them consistent in your training. Finally, we have vary the intensity. Varying the rep ranges so we have both low and high reps is crucial for me. Yes, we need to do our strength work under that 6 rep range, but I like to add in sets of 8 to 15 plus reps to support the conditioning. It's going to support our strength work, but it's also going to be a little bit protective as well for joints, connective tissue, and overall kind of fatigue from injuries. Anyway, enough rambling about strength. I'm going to give myself a B+ for this performance. Not bad, but also not amazing. Check in on the flexibility and see where things are at. We've got 3 main goals to test. We've got front split, we've got middle split, and we've got the pancake. What are you doing up there? Shouldn't be up there. No. One thing that hasn't changed are my shoes, and they're made by the good folks over at Vivo Barefoot. I've been using Vivos now for 7 years, and they're basically the only shoe that I wore on this entire trip was the Motus Strength, from hiking mountains to just doing some stretching. It helps just keep my feet connected. If you want to grab yourself a pair, then there is a discount code in the description down below. Thanks again to Vivo for sponsoring this series, and yeah, back to the testing. As before, a full warm-up is in order. I've actually got a lower body session to do, so I'm going to do a couple of sets of quad hamstring exercises. That's going to be part of the warm-up. I actually did this on the first test as well. I tested both of the splits at the end of leg session, so I think it's reasonable and fair. And then the rules that I made in the first assessment to keep things kind of level is 1 warm-up set of the position, so it kind of brushes off the rust. And then the second set is when we test and see where the improvement has come. You all right, mate? Can I help you? Front split has definitely been the main focus from a flexibility standpoint, but even then, the majority of the focus of the training of the last 12 weeks has been on strength. In the testing at the start of this program, I managed to be able to perform a front split with 1 block on its side underneath the front leg on both the left and the right side. Let's see how the performance goes. Okay, let's start with the worst side, second set. Good side. Yeah, maybe half a yoga block. There's got to be a more graceful way. So if we get out the angle meter for this one and we take a look at the hip extension, we're going to see way more hip extension in the end versus the start position. Ultimately, the front splits is all about the hip flexors, and you can see in the program that the majority of the drills are focused on this. I particularly liked the reverse Nordics for kind of the active use of that hip extension, but also the heavy hip flexor stretch in that final phase was great just for spending more time peeling back the layers and opening the hips. Definitely some improvements that could be made. I've actually got 2 that I want to share with you at the end of this flexibility testing, but for now, let's go to the middle split. I'll be honest with you, I haven't actually been training middle splits a whole lot. I think it's important to recognize the times where your body feels good and you want to push things. And then also, is it worth taking a step back and working on the more basics like hip rotation? If you go back and look at the phases, you'll see that. But we'll test it regardless and see if that improvement of the basics has paid off. At the start of this program, I was able to push my range towards 1 yoga block on the side. This feels relatively max. This is a good example in terms of like the difference between feeling and like being able to express. And this is probably relatively similar, maybe a bit better than before, but the level of discomfort that this is versus the front split is, yeah, levels. So again, some improvement, but to be honest with you, that one's just down to where that angle meter is going. Ultimately, wanting to train middle splits was probably more ego driven rather than actually practical. Definitely some things to learn and take away from this to future training, but let's take a look at the final position, which is the pancake. And I'm pleasantly surprised with how it's feeling. The reason for this improvement, despite not training it too much, is because it's been touched on in a few other different aspects. I focused on more of the hip rotation stuff instead of just pure middle split. And then because the pancake is more about hamstring flexibility, and I've been training front split, which demands hamstring flexibility, the improvements there have some crossover.
Okay, not able to get flat. Stomach is still probably like 5 centimeters away from the floor.
This one for me is going to be a fundamental because to reach the 5 rep style goal that I have next, I need to have a flat pancake to make that easier. So I will be training this one a little bit more intensely going forward. I'm happy to see some progress, but ultimately it could be better. So here are 2 improvements for flexibility training in these programs. Number 1 is more frequency. Ultimately, I was only training front split and middle split once per week. It simply isn't enough. I would either add some additional daily work to keep things ticking over or just another session. That being said, I don't mind starting on the lower end, closer to the minimum effective dose and build up rather than starting too high and, you know, the risk of excessive fatigue that brings. Number 2 is less goals. Now, this isn't necessarily a problem. We can definitely work on those 2 advanced moves at the same time. Without adding more training, we would probably see better progress by just focusing on one of them. The simplest way here would be to repeat that front split session twice in the week. It's then much easier to maintain a move once you've got it and working on the other ones. That's probably the approach that I'm going to take going forward. So I guess, what's next? More of the same, basically. I'm halfway towards my goal of reaching back to the strongest I've ever been, which would have been 5 handstand push-ups, 5 shoulder presses. Front splits will be there soon. So I'm just enjoying training, and I'm enjoying feeling good, and I'm enjoying sharing it as well. I feel like I've got something to share, something to talk about. And for me personally, it's the thing that got me into making YouTube videos in the first place. Sharing kind of my own honest training in the hopes that it helps people out. So if you do have any feedback for me, the good, the bad, the ugly, what you enjoyed, what you didn't, what you thought I could do better, what maybe I should have shared, let me know in the comment section down below. I'd really appreciate it. If you just enjoyed this one, thumbs up button is there as well. Hit the subscribe button, don't miss out on any more future videos. Other than that, I'll catch you next one. Have a strong week.